Hello everyone, it's Linen. Welcome to Thoth Thursday. I thought that I would jump on the bandwagon with Marlene like I normally do. Like we usually are in the same wagon together. But she had recently put a video out about tarot stacking, which is a play on words to book stacking, which is in and of itself a great exercise. And I was sorely interested. So I thought that, her studies with Greek mythology has been fascinating to go along with her. But I thought that I would do a tarot or a Thoth version of the tarot stacking, because I believe that there is like some sort of there can be stacking in the Thoth. So generally when you want to dive into the Thoth, you get the Book of Thoth, this is my copy. I still haven't, I used the hell out of it and it has fallen to pieces. Still haven't fixed it. I don't really know how, except taping and gluing it, which I've tried and it still will not hold. So it's this one in particular, my copy is in pieces. But even still, when we're talking about the deck itself, right? This lovely deck of cards here, some of the images, especially if you kind of know about tarot already, some of the images can be confusing. Crowley, he switches things around. He uses his own version of Golden Dawn things. And, there's some Thelema in here, and just there's basic occult knowledge, and then there's more arcane knowledge. And he plugs a lot of that into the Book of Thoth, right? But you really have to decipher what he's trying to actually say. Sometimes he says it in an aside way. And if you're familiar with theater terms, aside means that you say something that someone else on stage can't hear, but they're right there so they can hear it. So it's a ploy, if you will. And he acts like that a lot in this. Like he thinks that we don't know, or we shouldn't know what his other works are. He bounces around and says, oh, you'll find that information here. And then we don't always know where here is because we're not inside of his brain. So this book for the beginner can be really confusing. But so can the art in this tarot. So when we're thinking about learning in a Thoth manner, we can stack. And we can either go from the base level up to this, like base level learning, or and a more, I wouldn't even call it base, a more intuitive approach to the cards, because I believe that all of those are valid. Like if we knew a little of what he was trying to say for each card, and then we add our intuition, that's enough of a message to get us through a reading, in my opinion. You can go watch a public service announcement video that I made on Thoth a long time ago on a Thoth Thursday. I will leave it below for you to go check out if you're interested on my feelings on whether we actually need the occultism or not. So, but in terms of stacking, we can stack with the Thoth, we can stack with books or guidebooks or whatever you want to call them, books and decks, in my opinion. So we have the lovely OG here, all right, and the OG book. Move that over to the side. Now I brought out a couple of what I guess I will call Thoth clones. Now, if you want a way more intuitive approach, I would say that my quintessential Thoth is a really good thing. Okay, it's a really good deck. If I don't want to toot my own horn here, okay, but quintessential is just what, like Marlene has often talked about quintessential Thoth being the microscopic version of these images. And I totally believe that. When I was making these images and trying to get the colors right and all that, looking for the abstraction, I really did play on what I thought would be the microscopic, or getting down to the real nitty gritty with each card. Like for instance, these are the Magus cards, right? The colors are good, but the message that this abstract painting conveys is what the Magus card would convey. So they really do have roles in the abstraction. And so if you wanted a more intuitive approach, you could get a deck that, and there are other decks that perform abstractions with tarot. I know that Tarot as Color is one. That's beautiful. Margaret Peterson is one. Now, I wouldn't say that Margaret Peterson goes with Rider-Waite or Thoth, or Marseille even, possibly all three, to be honest. But still, that's an abstraction in a way that can intuitively pull you into the message of the cards. So for Thoth, quintessential is that for me, for sure. I love this deck so much. I had a beautiful time rendering my images, or curating really my images for Wild Essence, this kind of, you know, planet Earth version of Thoth. I really, really enjoyed my experiences with that. And I still play around with that deck, for real. Especially when I want to get back in touch with my wild self in a Thoth way. But with quintessential Thoth, I'm really taking it down to levels that we're not supposed to understand. And that's the beauty of it. Like, look at this Queen of Wands. It's just epic. This, I mean, like, most of these images hit so hard and so right that it is intuitive. It's intuition, but it's also getting to the core, like cutting these decks up into their core, or cutting this deck, the OG deck, up into the core and getting down to the quintessential, the quintessence. So yeah, so quintessential Thoth is my go-to for the intuitive, like for an intuitive version, I'll say. Okay, now the other one is the Asero Tarot by Sarah Whitley. Beautiful deck, because it is very artistic in nature. It's not abstract. Here's the backs. I'll pull them up for you a little bit. It's art that really pulls you into a modern take without it. It's modern artistic expression in a way that, instead of like this, very esoteric symbols everywhere, it tells us like almost like in a storybook fashion. That's how I kind of think of Asero Tarot. It's the storybook, fairy tale-esque version of Thoth. Beautifully colored, beautiful drawings, beautiful art that really captures the beauty of Thoth for me. For someone who's been reading Thoth for over a decade and loves it, I really appreciated this. I really appreciated this deck, and was so blessed to have been gifted it. But I mean, it's just fabulous. Jeez. I just love it so much. Look at that devil card. Like this, like they're holding this, but it looks like almost like a mirror, right? So there's symbols within symbols. They put their own essence into this, Sarah, and she did a fabulous job. So really impressed with the art here, but really impressed also with the color and its ability to form a relationship with the archetypes that are present in the OG, but in a very classical way that wakes up some of the symbols that seem like they're dormant in the OG to a beginner reader. So that's the Asero. Then if you're more dark, macabre in nature, then you might be interested in a darker Thoth. And by darker Thoth, I mean quite literally a chthonic Thoth. And that is a deck by Pixel Occult. They're very popular on Etsy. They've got a lot of decks out. The Lost Hollow, Neon. They've got Neon. Very, what I would call dystopian decks. They're very good at that aesthetic. Dystopian tarots. And they made Wayward Dark, which is quite literally described as a chthonic Thoth, something from the underworld. And I loved it so much. I don't reach for this as much as I thought I would, but that could just be that I've made so many Thoths that I like to make. I'd like to play around with the ones I've made myself, but this is a really good version. And the images are so good, like limited color palette. And again, the vision of the artist really comes through because it doesn't look anything like the OG. And so if you're not wanting to be intuitive, but you want it, like you want a kind of a fresh take, then the Wayward Dark is a really good option, right? Because you have to use intuition, but then you also have to get into the mind of the creator. And what a deck like this teaches you is that you can do that with Crowley and Lady Frida Harris as well. You can do that with this deck. You can get into the mind a little bit, because this doesn't have a guidebook. So you're just kind of winging it. You're like, oh, okay, the Magus is an ibis or wearing an ibis mask. They're holding a champagne bottle. What does that mean? They've got, or a champagne glass, champagne flute. They're holding all their tools, right? Like, they seem to have multiple arms, yada, yada, yada. Like, you can really pull things that the creator and the artist of this deck is trying to convey inside of their art. And you use your intuition and then turn that around and plug it back into what you would know the OG. Working with all of these Thoth decks is good, but I would even suggest, if you have a clone, like look at this crab being, this crab / peacock. Because, and see, in the OG, there's a knight on a horse, okay, and they're holding a crab, but then there's a peacock in the lower right-hand corner. So when using decks like this, clones like this, and trying to get in touch with the artist's vision, use the OG, or I keep saying OG, original, that's what OG means. Use the original deck and pull out the subsequent cards. Play with them together. That'll actually help you to form a relationship with this deck. If you're having trouble with that, like say this appeals more to to you from an aesthetic standpoint, then you can still pull this card, this corresponding card from the original deck, and play around with the images, play around with what they are doing to you in a bodily way. What's going on in the mind? What's going on in the body? Which one feels more spiritual? Ask them questions. Ask why is this? Why is this? Like, look at these these dried poppies, like dried poppy pods. Love it. For indolence. So I would definitely use a deck that you are more comfortable with in tandem with the original, and that helps. Stacking like this helps, I think. So there's a chthonic Thoth. I didn't pull my Wild Essence, but you guys, if you've been here with me for a while, then you're familiar with it. But in terms of books, it's really cool because you have the Book of Thoth. And again, I would try to work in tandem with a book that you're comfortable with, plus the Book of Thoth, add them together. And it's just like this big old tarot math problem. Like you're adding all of what this book says and this book says and this book says. And really then, so you're not plagiarizing. It's just like writing an essay. You read all these, you're writing this sentence and this sentence, or this paragraph down in your journal, and then you add it all together and then turn it around into your own words, and bam, that's your message for whatever card you're working on. That's how I do it. Sorry, I had to move the chair. But if we're going to go up to, I guess this being the hardest book that you would have in learning the original, then I would go up to understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot by Lon Milo Duquette. Lon, do you mind if I call you Lon? Anyway, Lon is so cheeky, and I love his personality. I love his writing style. I mean, in a lot of his books, okay? Like, I think that, to me, his funniest one is Chicken Kabbalah. But it really shows his personality and his writing style, and it comes forth in this. You can very much tell that he has a background with the OTO. You very much know that he's intelligible in a way that makes it kind of, it's like, the Book of Thoth is like reading someone's handwriting that you kind of know, you kind of can read, but you're still like, why did you write your G's like that? Why'd you write your D's like that? And you're kind of confused, right? But then Lon comes in and says, I've typed it all out for you. I've typed it all out for you. You don't have to, be confused anymore, right? But there's still a lot of information in this book, okay? A lot. A lot of things that you may have taken for granted in the Book of Thoth. But it's in a more organized fashion. So it's easily accessible. I don't want to say easily. It's more accessible, but there's still a lot to unpack here. But let's say one more book, and these are my 3 favorites for Thoth. The one book that I would recommend for a more intuitive, generalized approach is Gerd Ziegler's Tarot Mirror of the Soul, Handbook for the Aleister Crowley Tarot. It is beautiful because it acts like a little white book, in my opinion. This is the actual, not the little white book that comes with these decks, because no. Okay? Don't even read that thing. But this book really does act like the original deck's little white book. The one that was supposed to have come with the deck. Okay? It was supposed to like come in a little small, like a little booklet with the deck. And then if you wanted to learn more, you buy these 2 books. That's the stacking here, is that I truly believe that this has a lot of really good insights. And not just on the symbolism, but questions, journal prompts that you can ask yourself. It really is trying to mirror the original deck with the soul of the querent, with the soul of the with the one reading, okay? And it's just so accessible. This is easily accessible. This is a little bit more accessible, still a lot to digest, and this is eating beets. You got to do it because you need the iron, because you're anemic, but Jesus, you're about to throw up. And I am not harping on the Book of Thoth. It's one of my, whenever I tell people if they really want to know the ins and outs of this, to at least read this, at least read the Book of Thoth through a couple of times. You don't have to know everything. And that's, again, in a public service announcement video I've made before. But Gerd Ziegler's book is really good. The keywords that they put, and then the little couple of paragraphs on their take on the symbolism, and then like turning that around. Again, this is like they've read these 2 books and then put their meanings for each card in their own words. And I believe that it really comes through that way. Someone that may not have even known about Thelema, the Golden Dawn, OTO, whatever, like they might not have even had any kind of real experience with those practices, but they know the deck. Like I really feel like they know the deck. That's all I'm going to say. So this is the book stacking. Okay. And then tarot stacking, Thoth clones and what have you, is Macabre Chthonic Thoth, the OG. You could pick up Quintessential if you're really wanting to get into an abstracted, intuitive Thoth. And I would say that if you're already kind of familiar with the images and your own relationship to the images and what they mean to you, then Quintessential Thoth is like just a good jumping off point from that. But again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I think that in terms of clones, all of these are really good options. Or these are, because this is the OG. These are. And then these books are my go-to recommendations for the Thoth Tarot. So, really hope you enjoyed this little, FYI PSA video of how I would go about stacking for Thoth. And much love to Marlene for putting this idea out here. I love when people get creative and we kind of mix ideas from the book community and the tarot community. When we're mixing ideas and we're being creative with it, that is really inspiring. And I love her brain. So I will leave her down below for you to go check out too. Hope everyone's having a fabulous day. Much love.